The thing that's fascinating, though, is that while traders would have done that perhaps in futures and perhaps also in Shanghai, you still had a backwardation between London and Comex.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the volumes in the silver contract on Comex, I mean, it's just gone to a crawl. They're not dealing, basically. So nothing has been resolved. You've still got the problems there. There is no liquidity in London. If the shakeout has discouraged ordinary people from going in and buying ETFs, which is a real problem because, the ETFs basically, if you look at what's stored in the London vaults, it's almost all ETFs. So if you get subscribers going in for silver ETFs, then, the problem is going to come back in spades. So, it's still there. And I don't think what we have seen has really discouraged the retail market, if you like. I mean, everybody I talk to around the world, they're still incredibly busy dealing in coins, small bars, and all the rest of it. The public are still buying this. I think there's a bit more two-way trade, yeah. But, the Perth Mint has got nothing. It's sold out.
Yep.
And this is a story I'm hearing all over the place. So there is tightness in these markets. Now, I think the hope is that you can just sort of sit on it for a little bit. Then, the enthusiasm will go away. This has happened before when we saw the spike in silver. Was it back in, I can't remember when it was. It's not all that long ago, a few years back. The enthusiasm went away because they just basically ran up the price and then bashed it, which is roughly what, that's a standard tactic, basically. How long this consolidation is going to last is difficult to say. But, the clock is ticking on the shorts. That is really the problem. And if you're a trader, then good luck to you. You got your life in your own hands. That's not what we're talking about. If, on the other hand, you're a stacker, then you say, hallelujah, I can buy some stuff a little bit cheaper than I thought I could yesterday. And that's the right attitude to take. Just keep stacking. I mean, we've seen it before. You sort of see price run up and then it comes down and all the rest of it. And everybody says, it was overbought and stuff. So they stop buying and then it runs away. And suddenly they find that what they sold, say at $2,700 or $2,070, which is where it consolidated after COVID, they're out of the market. And here we are close to 4,000. Help, what do I do? I mean, idiots. You've stacked for a reason. You're getting out of credit. That's the whole thing. It's not gold going up. It's the dollar and all the other fiat currencies going down. And we can now see the path to their complete destruction. That is the key thing. This is not a time to accumulate wealth. It's a time basically to secure what you've got. And that means getting the hell out of credit. There is another aspect of this, which I think is a hidden thing. Earlier this year, we found, much to our amazement, that bullion was being taken out of the Bank of England's vaults and shipped over to Comex to benefit from the arbitrage, as it were. The arbitrage was the other way. London was below Comex. Comex, huge great premium. Why? Because of uncertainty of whether gold will be tariffed or whatever. So, but the thing about it is that certainly commercial entities do not store very much gold in the Bank of England. It is mostly, and when I say mostly, not quite entirely, but because we don't really have the true figures, it is other central banks. Now, what will have gone out is leased gold. Now put yourself in the shoes of a central bank using the facilities of the Bank of England, which until now you felt quite confident because you lease your gold. Basically, it pays for the storage costs and also you get a bit of a margin on top, which means that you've got this sterile asset which is actually earning you something, which is great. You have the comfort that the Bank of England is going to continue to store that gold over the life of the lease. All that's happening is that there is a book entry transfer system. The bullion's got to remain in a vault, for goodness sake. So it may as well remain in the Bank of England's vault. So as a foreign central bank, you're sitting there quite comfortably. You know, at the end of the lease period, you haven't lost control over the gold.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is very different from the early days when gold was actually taken out of storage and then sold into the market as part of the carry trade, whereby hedge funds and others would go and buy T-bills. I mean, T-bills in those days were yielding as high as 10%, and over the decades fell to something like 5%. And with gold you could lease at 1%. I mean, it was a trade in heaven. It really was. But now, the Bank of England doesn't behave like that. The Bank of England controls it. But the key thing is that if you lease gold, it is actually your property over the duration of the lease, so you can do what you want with it. So the Bank of England couldn't stop it going out. But looking at it from the point of view of the foreign central bank, you've lost control over it. Are you going to get it back?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. What you are likely to do, however, is to take the view that you're going to exit this leasing game. There's no point. Because if you can't secure your asset, why lease it?
Yeah.
So on that basis, I think what the London market is finding, and you won't find anyone writing about this or anything. What the London market, I think, is finding is that there is a tightness of supply. I'm sure the bullion banks are completely aware of this. Because if what I'm saying is true, and I believe it is true because it's a reasonable assumption, then the bullion banking, the LBMA community will know that they have got to manage things, if you like, with less liquidity, physical liquidity in the future. So this idea of hypothecating, rehypothecating, that story is coming to an end. And it's interesting that at the LBMA's annual bun fight, which was last week, they did a poll of attendees. They always do this to see what they reckon the gold price is going to be at the end of the next year or by the time of the next annual meeting. And the average came out at just under $5,000. So, these guys know that it's going up. And they're going to keep, they are doing a pretty good job of keeping on an even keel. I think that the bullion banks in London do have a bit of stock. Now, I don't know that they've covered all their liabilities because they also have unallocated accounts, and those unallocated accounts are just generally covered and not necessarily totally covered by gold. So, but they have got that little bit of liquidity and they're not losing it. The problem, if anything, is likely to be on Comex. China and India were supplying silver on the really big backwardation, when we saw backwardation of $2 or $3, whatever. Yeah. I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't know the terms of the leases, and I don't know that that silver was leased from China and delivered into the London market. I would doubt it personally, because apart from anything else, the People's Bank of China actually controls the silver market as well as the gold market. You can't move without getting permissions from the People's Bank of China. But the amount of silver in the Shanghai Futures Exchange vaults, as far as I can see, has actually been falling. So I think that's been taken out of the vaults. But you see, I would expect this anyway, because industrial corporations, making solar panels and all the rest of it, they keep their stock in these vaults. So they'll be drawing it down anyway. Mm-hmm. But I think the liquidity is diminishing as a result. So yeah, the whole thing is tightening up, but not necessarily in the way in which you were suggesting. If you look at a central bank that's been accumulating gold and selling dollars, in most cases, they've probably still got more foreign currencies, more fiat currencies than they have gold. Mm-hmm. I think what they're doing is they're trying to protect themselves. This isn't a trade, if you like.
Right.
If you see what I mean. A trade giving them a benefit. So, the whole system it's basically the whole of the fiat currency system is coming to an end, which threatens the very existence of central banks themselves. So I don't see that they're necessarily happy about this. I mean, there is the geopolitical side of this, of course. China has more or less cornered the physical market, and we now know what China's plans are to protect the yuan. I mean, basically, the SGE is opening vaults in Hong Kong, and also they've already opened in Hong Kong, I understand. They're also opening in Saudi Arabia. And there will be facilities all around the ASEAN nations whereby you can settle trade differences in yuan or gold. And I see today Cambodia has announced, I don't know that this has been verified, has announced that it's prepared to store its gold in Shanghai Gold Exchange vaults. So we can see that as our system here collapses, post-Bretton Woods. I mean, post-Bretton Woods is coming to an end. Chinese understand this. This is why they've cornered the gold market. They have protected themselves from our follies, from our destruction, from our debt problems, from the collapse of our currencies. And consequently, they will put their currency on some sort of gold standard. And we can see how this is going to be rather like a sort of Bretton Woods too, but only in trade settlements. I think that's the way it's going to work. But this is something which is as much driven by necessity as geopolitics, if you like. So to answer your question, I can't see there's a clear case of central banks seeking to profit from this. I suppose that there are some smaller nations, maybe within the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, who are very gold rich in terms of resources. They're probably, some of the officials there may be cheering from the sidelines, but nothing really material as far as we're concerned.